using this for quite a while now. How you guys doing back there?
We're good. Keep going.
Okay, good. Keep talking. All right. So our objectives today are just to explore the demographics of aging a little bit, and then primarily to learn to identify signs of the inability to live independently. How do we know when somebody is at that point where maybe they can't live by themselves or they need more assistance in the home? And then we can talk a little bit maybe about how you make some of those decisions. How do you come to a time when, what are some of the options as far as living in home services, and then maybe you make a decision for someone to move into a skilled facility if they need more attention. So, we know that, one of the reasons why we have so many more people in the aging older adult category in our country and all over the world really is because people are living longer. As well as there was this big baby boom that happened after World War II. There was a big population that now they are aging and they are living longer. We are living longer and longer because we have better health care, even when we're younger and as we age. And so this is going to mean that there's just going to be a lot of older adults in our communities from now on. It's not just the baby boomers, and like I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers. I was born in '63. And so, but even after, there's going to be still continue to be a lot more older adults in our communities. And so, the greatest increase, the greatest population increase is people over 80, and particularly over 85. So, it's not going to be unusual. We're all going to face this, and we're all going to have lots of friends with different kinds of chronic illnesses and things like Alzheimer's and things that as we progress, as we age as a society, we're going to see more and more people with that. Dependency is defined as a lack of independence or self-sufficiency. So among those older than 70, 2 in 5 people will need help with one or more daily activities. We'll define the activities of daily living in a minute here. The signs of inability to live independently are maybe this person requires assistance in performing basic activities of daily living. Maybe they fail to eat regularly or adequately. They need assistance in eating. There's weight loss greater than 10 pounds during the past 6 months. You show up, you go see somebody, and you haven't seen them for a while, and they've lost a lot of weight. Perhaps they're not eating correctly. They're restricted to a wheelchair or bed, or the home shows signs of neglect. Maybe some of you have seen some of that with some of your family members. Mobility is key for independence. And it's really true, it's move it or lose it. We see this every day out at the Enright Center with people that are coming in with wanting to do more fitness to strengthen. We've got balance classes that fill up all the time. It's a real need for people to be mobile in order to stay well, but to stay living independently. And that's kind of what brings people in, is that they know that if they have a difficulty getting from room to room or have any stamina, then that's going to make the difference between them being able to live at home or not anymore. So activities of daily living are on page 3 on the corner. The activities of daily living that are assessed if you were going to go to a skilled facility, or if you were going to be assessed to use in-home services. and some of the funding for in-home services that we'll talk about later, they're going to look for you if whether you can do these activities of daily living or whether this person can do those things. There's bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, meaning from bed to chair or getting up and moving around that way, continence, both urinary or fecal, and then feeding. So a lot of times we'll, we have a case manager that comes out and does an assessment. Do they need help with any of these things? Bathing and dressing is kind of something that kind of happens right away, usually. And so the rest of these slides in this section identify signs of the inability, and you can kind of give a point. So you see across the slide it says bathing, this is on the bottom slide on page 3, needs no help, needs some help, or unable to do. So you would, give that person 2 points if they need no help with bathing. But if they need some help with bathing, then they get 1 point. And then if they're unable to do that by themselves at all, then they get 0. And then that's how you go through each one of those, and then you calculate the score. So if somebody needs help with bathing and dressing, that's 2 activities of daily living. And you may be then eligible, or you might want to think about getting some assistance. Obviously, that person needs some help to do those things. And do you want to provide that for them? Or if they're living alone, they might need to get somebody in there to come and help them do those things. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and then the rest of the slides, on the back on page 4, talks a little bit specifically about, okay, bathing. What do you mean? Bathe yourself completely, or you need help doing that? You need help getting in and out of the shower. Sometimes just that safety of having someone standing there and helping them get in and out of the shower is what they really need. Or using a shower bench or something so they can slide in and out. There's an occupational therapist could help people kind of figure out how to do some more of these things more safely. Activities of daily living with dressing, getting clothes. Can they completely dress themselves, or do you have to set out the clothes for them? Can they still do the buttons? Those kinds of questions. So each one of these slides kind of goes through those things in detail. I won't go through each slide, but what you would need in order to assess what that really means. Can they go to the bathroom by themselves? Can they transfer from the bed to the chair? And then feeding. That's one of the things that I think people lose pretty quickly is that interest sometimes in food. But if you put food in front of them, then they'll eat. So there's some of that as far as having regular meal times or having snacks and things that are out and that are easy for them to grab and get. And then kind of just figuring out, will they take that apple out of the bowl? Do they know how to use that apple anymore and take that apple out of the bowl and eat it? Or does it need to be sliced and put in front of them? And then will they eat it? These are things that you'll kind of figure out over time. But the eating part is often a challenge for folks. Does anybody have experience with that, where it's difficult to get somebody to eat?
I think that Sherry's mother with Alzheimer's, she just forgot to eat and drink. So dehydration was a big issue.
Right, thank you.
My mother, it's just too much work to gather the food. With a walker, she can't carry it anywhere. Put it in front of her. Most days, it's just disappears.
Right. So that brings up a really good point. If you are physically not very strong, or it's a lot of work to stand and cut up an apple, or go into the kitchen and get a bowl of cereal, because you have to get the cereal down, and then you have to go to the refrigerator to get the milk, and there's all these different steps involved. So part of that is remembering all the steps in sequence. But then also there's just that physical strength of, do you have it to do that?
And in logistics, I visited one lady for the bank, needed some signatures and some stuff, and she was telling me the logistics of carrying a bowl of cereal for the wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you left your teeth in the other room. Okay.
Left your
do I
teeth
get
in
my
the other
teeth,
room.
or do I get
right.
some?
So this is Right, so all the things you have to think of in order to do that, in order to get a meal. So those are really great points.
The other aspect of dressing
Mhm.
is, not only the physical ability to change
To put it
clothes,
on. Mhm.
but the whole laundry and it's either keeping things kind of clean and separating dirty clothes from clean clothes.
Right.
In addition to, remembering to change clothes and those sorts of things.
Right.
So is that all part of what you're referring to when you say dressing?
That's a really good point. Yeah, let's see.
I hope it is. It's not a yes or no. There's more to dressing than putting on
Well, that's true.
clothing.
Right.
Because I think
Well,
these
I
are
think
often
the
used
dressing-
by facilities.
Right.
And they're already shopping and they're
Right.
doing laundry and
Well,
they're
and
making
there are
beds.
instrumental, what they call instrumental activities of daily living, and we'll get to those. And those are not as, those are things that usually you see you need help with first, actually, like paying your bills, like
Yeah.
going grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Those kinds of
Okay,
things.
that makes
These
sense.
are like real specific to need to survive, right?
Okay.
You need to be able to do the bathing and the dressing and eating yourself. Preparing a meal is another layer of that.
Yeah.
So-
While you're talking about the meals, I'd like to say that the meals that were delivered to my husband were so helpful, and he thought they were so delicious.
Good.
And it was, I could just take that tray and set it in front of him, heat it and set it in front of me. And there were times he could eat, use his fingers. I always presented the utensils, but sometimes he did
Right.
go with his fingers.
Mhm.
But he thought those meals were so delicious, and it helped me so much just to go to the freezer and pull that out and do what I needed to do. And so
Right.
that was a great help to him.
Great, thank you. And I think that's a really good suggestion, if your person that you're caring for can't do those things themselves, doesn't mean that, like preparing a meal is a big deal, and it becomes a big deal for everybody in the household if you're having to do all of these things. So what can you do to make things easier? Can you get Meals on Wheels or our Area 10 meals? Either
These were
one.
the Area
You
10
can.
meals.
Or can you buy some frozen meals ahead? Or, some people go to the deli and just get a couple of things. So you don't have to do all the cooking yourself. You want to be thinking ahead of, if these are the activities that you're struggling with, that are, getting enough nutrition, getting enough good meals to your person that you're caring for, then what are some other ways that you can do besides you doing it all yourself?
And then I look forward to the delivery person, because he always said, is there anything you need? How's your husband? And so,
It's a social.
it was another visit checking on us. That, yeah.
And I say that about meal delivery too, is that
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we start caring for people that need a lot more of assistance, like these activities of daily living, sometimes our lives get really small. Not so many people come and visit. It gets harder to have people come and visit. And so the people that you can have come in, some people say, I don't want strangers in my house. But when else do you meet new people? And when else do you engage with people? So having that delivery driver come in for Meals on Wheels or something, that's just, it's a light in your day. It's an activity. It's a person that you can talk with. It's a real person that really does care about you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
And
have
I
to be
always think, oh, what a nice volunteer.
Yeah.
And how much good he was doing there.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Donna.
How do you go about getting that delivered? And it's helping me to hear this because I feel the total responsibility trying to work and trying to make sure she's got meals and everything. And
Well,
she's getting to the point where to leave frozen food, if she tries to microwave it on her own, she ends up burning it.
Sure. Well, it depends on where you live. I'll just go ahead and explain the two different meal programs that there are in town. There's one called Meals on Wheels, and it's through the hospital, and you have to live within the city limits of Bloomington. They charge about $5.50 a day, I think, and you get one hot meal around the noon hour, and then you also get a little sack lunch, like a sandwich and a piece of fruit or something for later. And I think they come with milk, and you know, they're really nice, well-balanced meals. Because they come primarily from the hospital I'm Meadowwood, I think you can ask for like a special diet if you really want like a wound healing diet, or they do like high protein diets or something like that as well. And those are delivered within the city limits of Bloomington only. And there is a fee for those. And then our meals through Area 10 are supported through the Older Americans Act, Title III dollars. And so we cannot charge for those meals, but we do ask for a donation. If you're in the city limits of Bloomington, you will get a hot meal, one hot meal for the day, and it will be delivered 5 days a week. Outside of the city limits in some different areas, depending how far out you live, you might get delivery 3 days a week with a hot meal one day and a frozen for the next day, so that you would heat it up yourself. Or sometimes we give people just like a 5-pack frozen if they live further out of our daily routes. You know, if they live way out in Monroe County, or out in pretty far out in Owen County or something. Because we serve both Owen and Monroe counties for those meals.
Where do you dispatch those from?
Those are dispatched from a variety of places. So we have a Bloomington site. We have 2 Bloomington sites. We have 1 Ellettsville site and a Spencer site.
We're in Ellettsville, so
Yeah, Ellettsville goes 3 days a week. Hot, frozen, hot.
And that's $3 a day, is that correct?
The donation is a donation only, but we ask for, you know, $2.50 or $3 a day, whatever people can pay. So a lot of the folks that we serve in town actually can't really afford that $5 a day. We serve a lot of low-income seniors, but you know, it doesn't matter. If you're 60 and older, you can have that meal. And you're homebound, you can have that meal. Great question.
Dude, that sounded good. Right up to the home.
Yeah,
Very
right.
good.
Right. Well, we have a
My
couple.
office, please.
Yeah, right. To your office. That's right. That's right. So, good questions. Any other questions on the activities of daily living? I'll just go quickly through what they call instrumental activities of daily living, and that's on page 6. Those are the things that get a little trickier earlier on. So, using the telephone, doing your grocery shopping, preparing meals, like we talked about, housework, laundry, there you go,
Yeah.
medications,
Oh, yes.
managing your medications, and your finances, right? Can you pay your bills? That's sometimes when people notice something's going on, is that there's a lot of notices from bills that aren't being paid or things like that, if somebody was living alone. So
Or
those
checks written to strangers that come to the door.
checks written to strangers, yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to defraud older adults, and this generation, particularly the older generation right now, they're used to trusting people. And so it's a kind of a perfect storm. So there's an assessment tool there then, if you want to assess how people are doing with on the bottom of 6, how they're doing with using the telephone. A lot of times, like I said, you're going to see, before you see people needing help with dressing and bathing, you're going to see these kinds of activities that they need help with these things first.
But if it's still live alone, and someone can manage more of it.
Right, and it's a little easier to help people manage those things. Grocery shopping, preparing meals, those kinds of things. And, you know, like a home care company, like Comfort Keepers or Elder Care Connections or Home and Fit Senior Care, or some of these companies like that, you can hire a caregiver to come in and help you do some of those things. Take mom shopping or go shopping for her. You can, or, you know, she can, you know, the caregiver can stay with your family member while you go and do those things. Or they can do some laundry for you or whatever. Remember, you know, you don't have to do it all, and think about what would be supportive for you. Maybe you love doing laundry, but you hate doing grocery shopping. you know. So what is it that you want to do that, you know, that would be most supportive? Give away the things that you don't really like to do.
For the high stress.
For the high stress one. And then, you know, do the things that you feel better about doing. So, managing money, too, is another one I wanted to talk just a little bit about. But Jamie will be talking to us about power of attorney and some other things on how to set some of that up. But you want to, just by putting your name on somebody's checkbook does not give you power of attorney. So you have power to write a check, but you don't necessarily have power of attorney. So you'll want to, but helping people manage their money, helping people pay their bills sometimes is really a really useful thing for helping people continue to live in their home. They can do these things if you can get them set up on automatic bill pay, or if you personally can kind of oversee some of that. On the bottom of 9 it says what may an older adult give up to live in their home. And sometimes we really talk to a lot of different people at Area 10 that just really want to stay at home as long as possible, of course. I think that's just so true. And they're willing to give up a little independence in order to do that. So, you know, assisting with their finances, assisting with shopping, assistance with meal preparation, and those kinds of things. If they don't live with you know, helping them do those kinds of things. They're willing to give up some of that in order to continue to live at home. It's really important to negotiate your relationship so that people can do as much as they can for themselves. You may be negotiating a change in your relationship as a parent, a daughter, or, you know, just as a friend, or your spousal relationships change a little bit. Somebody used to manage the money and he's not able to manage the money anymore, or, you know, those kinds of things change in a relationship. But there's still things that that people can do. And it's important to try to look at what are their strengths, what can they do for themselves, what could they do for themselves with a little bit of help, putting food out so that they can, you know, more easily get that, or things like that. So that people still have a real sense of being able to do what they can for themselves. There's allowing people that dignity and that self-respect for them as long as possible, that they can really do and make choices for themselves is really important. So looking at what kinds of, like, these instrumental activities of daily living. Maybe they can't take their medications by themselves, but if they had that medicine reminder, or, you know, how do you help them do that as long as possible?
What do you do when the person is not accepting of things that they're not able to do, and they take offense, even though you're as nice as you can be about trying to help them, and they lash out, and they're actually angry
Sure.
thinking, or, you know, I can do it, or how do you
handle that? Anybody want to talk about it?
It's a hard one.
That's a hard one.
Especially the person
That's the
has,
hardest one, right?
they don't
And
know that
especially
they
if they
have
have
that.
something else going on cognitively. Yeah. I think
You
it's
don't know how good
behaviors.
it is to hear other people say
Yeah.
that they're in the same place.
Yeah.
You feel like you're the only one.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Did you want to answer that?
Wow.
Or
I'll
address
share
that?
one idea, I'm not
Uh-huh.
answering it, but I was given some good advice by the Alzheimer Kathleen Weber, who was
With
at
the
that
Alzheimer's
time
educator at
there.
that time?
And it was creating so much stress that the time together that we had wasn't good.
Uh-huh.
And transferring as much of the stressful interactions, things that she didn't want me to do, if there's a way to transfer it to another person, like a caregiver or a friend or a church member, so that my interaction remained positive. And that's part of that other person's job is to be the brunt. I mean, it's, and they know that. I mean, that's,
A good one knows that.
a good one knows that. You know, just a couple of hours, a couple of times a week, you know, takes care, at least for me, it relieved those bad interactions, so that my time was more positive. So anyway.
My problem is for the past few years, she's only wanted to do things with me, like and she doesn't want somebody else, and I'm on the trail, so I don't have any brothers and sisters.
You want to address that?
Well, I just wanted to add on to that. I think what Sherry is saying is very good. I think, too, that not only are those people used to being the brunt, but sometimes they're not the brunt because it's not their kid trying to tell them what to do or somebody that, you know, gets to tell me what to do. It's somebody that's in that role.
It's a helper.
Right.
Yeah.
It also depends on the situation and the person. Sometimes I might not even have that conversation at all. Hey, I'm doing this for you, and here's why I'm doing it. Because if they're not aware of that, I might just do it. You know, if they get angry because you're cooking and you're telling them it's because you don't remember recipes and you can't cook anymore, I might just cook dinner and set it on the table and say, here's dinner. You know, just removing as much of that conflict as possible and not even picking that battle, I think can be helpful. It's not going to solve every battle, but then the battles that you do have don't feel like it's on a stack of a million, you know, if that makes any sense. I probably will talk about that more in depth later today.
Well, these 10 absolutes with Alzheimer's are really huge.
They're back here on the table.
I did that with my mom's back. I used to ask her, let's take a bath now because you haven't, you know, it's been a while. Oh no, I took a bath yesterday. You know, well, not really, mother. And then she'd get mad at me. I just make a bathtub, put bubble bath in it, and it's time to go to bed. Yeah. And she's okay with that. Yeah.
It's like you didn't ask questions.
Yeah.
No open-ended questions. It was Alzheimer's, right?
She's not been diagnosed. And I took her to the doctor. She doesn't like to go to the doctor, but we had some things going on, and I took her to the doctor, and she checked out fine on everything, but they said she needed to go to a neurologist to actually be diagnosed. And I asked the doctor, I said, when they are diagnosed, at her age, she's going to be 93 in December, at her age, what will the outcome of that be? You know, is there anything positive? And the doctor said, not really, because usually you try to catch it earlier. So right now I'm questioning whether I should even take her in to get her diagnosed with something or not, because she's not real hip on going.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the decisions that we gave, like she said, I didn't ask you want to take a bath, and you just sit there and do it. You might ask you want coffee or root.
Right.
I mean, you gave them simple
Some choices, but not a lot of
absolutely,
choices, but not open-ended choices.
And not the big ones that you knew the outcome what needed to be done. And
or the same like when you're with children, you know, if you say, well, do you want to take a bath? If they say no, they answer the question. But if you say, do you want to take a bath now, or should we do it later?
Yeah.
Or should we do it after dinner or something? They know if they have to pick. Or also, I think if you, I don't know, I'm here thinking about my dad, who also is not diagnosed, and we're suspecting. I found that he's really just easily distracted, and so we just use that as something, you know, if he doesn't want to do something, then we, you know, switch to something else and then sneak it in later.
You know, get to it later.
Everybody here, is it important to get diagnosed, or at this age, is it just to care for him?
I'm going to ask Dana to answer that.
Oh.
Yeah, I would say that depends, again, on what will be the outcome of getting that diagnosis. I think if it could be important. I think more important is to rule out other things that could be going on. You know, are there medical conditions that might be making the cognition worse? Are there reversible things that we might treat that even if there's some kind of underlying dementia, would improve things at least a little bit for a little while? Kind of getting that big picture, I think, could be important. If you know and she goes to the doctor all the time and all those labs are normal and there's no kind of extra medical stuff, what is that?
That's the coffee pot.
Oh, holy cow. I was like looking for Bob. If you know that all of that is stable and you suspect this is where we are, it might not do much, but it might give you a better understanding of kind of what's happening, what you can be doing, and those kinds of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I took her to the doctor, she immediately, she was like I was out to get her. She was, well, are they going to give me medicine? And I said, I don't know.
So if all it's going to do is make her angry and it's not really going to teach you anything new, it might not be worth it. One other advantage to getting that diagnosis, though, is that it's financially, certain things will be paid for if you have that diagnosis where other things wouldn't. So I'm not sure if she drives. I'm going to bank probably not. But for instance, for people who are worried about the driving issue, having that diagnosis and referring to a driving evaluation, you're going to get that evaluation paid for by Medicare. Whereas if you went there and they said, potential memory issues, it won't be paid for. So there's practical reasons, I think financially, I think as far as planning goes, that it's important to have that for. But if you don't think that's going to help you much, and you said she's like 94 or something?
She'll be 93 in
Yeah.
December.
I mean, how much are we going to change over the next
Well, that's what
so many years?
They ruled out
For her, it might be more disruptive than it would for somebody who's 70 years old and can treat early.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and we're around throughout lunch and stuff. If you have individual questions,
And the rest
you want
of the
to talk,
day. Yeah.
the rest of the day. So if you have individual questions and stuff, we'd be happy to answer those. So just to kind of complete this particular session, caregiving can be just a really wonderful time in your life. It can also be very stressful. But so helping to manage what some of those things are, thinking about what's causing the stress in your life, what's difficult right now, what's hard to handle, and then trying to think what some of the options would be around that, like if meal preparation is really a bother or really causing you a lot of stress and you're worried that they're not eating well, then what about doing something like that, is like we talked about, getting some food in or different things. So to just really give yourself a few minutes to really think about sometime to think about what is it that's causing that stress for you and what could you do about it. All right. I think that's all I want to say about these things. You can read through those things yourself. We can go ahead and take a quick break before we get into the next two sessions. In this